Well, all of a sudden, it feels like the North Carolina Tar Heels have joined the Big Ten. They played at Indiana. They just played Ohio State on Saturday. And now tonight, the Michigan Wolverines.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, it's Wednesday, December 21st, 2022. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade. Joining me midweek, as he does every midweek, is our guy, Coach Pack Kilby. We want to thank you for making Locked On Tar Heels your first listen or watch every single day to get your team. Well, today on the show, we got to look ahead at this matchup with Michigan coming up tonight. We're going to recap the women's unfortunate loss in the Jumpman Invitational. But first, Pack, I want to tie a bow on the Ohio State victory from Saturday. An absolutely wacky and wild game, but a much needed win over the Ohio State Buckeyes. Whew, sweating bullets on that one. And folks, just so you know, this Michigan game ends the non-conference schedule. So on next week's show, Pack and I are going to do a more in-depth non-conference breakdown and as we kind of transition into ACC play. But Pack, one of the things, obviously we've talked about the Ohio State game quite a bit on the show this week, but one of the first thing I want to get your take on is I thought one of the big things that really changed the tenor of the second half were the defensive adjustments that Coach Davis and the coaching staff made, both in terms of like full court press and other types of traps. I thought RJ Davis had some really good on ball pressure, forcing a shot clock violation. You as a coach, as you're looking at, I just want your thoughts on how the defensive changes affected the outcome of this game.
Sure. First of all, I thought the full court press was obviously it was very effective. And I even saw some people going, why don't we do this all the time? As much as I would love for us to be able to do that, I don't think that's realistic because of our unproven depth.
Exactly. Exactly. Three bench points in this game, Pack. Three.
Right. Yeah, which is crazy because the Citadel was 42? Mm-hmm. So crazy drop off, obviously differential in talent that we were facing.
Sure, absolutely. But still.
Yeah, right. And it's inconsistency. And so we can't do that all game, but it was a nice touch in this game. And obviously it caused Ohio State some problems. I thought it wore them down some. And they started to become a little lazier with the ball. They started to miss some shots that, maybe they were hitting early on. And then, I thought in the half court we did a better job of just not letting them get to the paint as much. And like you mentioned, RJ had some good ball pressure. And that wasn't just him; it was all of them. They were pressing the ball. They weren't attacking the middle of the floor as much. So we did a good job there. And I'll tell you what, I think our offense was a little sharper down the stretch. Now it was far from perfect, but we're not turning the ball over as much, and shots are going in, which they were because we were overcoming a deficit. So we were scoring more than they were, and.
That's great math, Mac. Great math. Way to go.
Yeah, right. When that happens, it's easier to play defense. I know that sounds like elementary or simple, but I'm just telling you, the more the ball goes in the basket, the easier it is to play defense. And I thought that helped us some down the stretch there.
Man, that's so good. Yeah, it was a very encouraging thing to watch. Obviously, Carolina's defense is not currently at the same level of efficiency as its offense, but we are obviously hopeful that will continue to improve. We'd love to see Carolina get just into the top 50 in defensive efficiency, which they are not currently. Now, continuing on with the idea of the coaching staff and their impact on this game, one of the most interesting things to me was the final 2 seconds of the game, which seems like, hey, that's not very long. But I think it says so much about this coaching staff's capability. Number one, you talk about timeouts saved and, oh boy, you're wasting your timeouts. They needed every one of those timeouts down the stretch. Brilliant move to call a timeout just to get that inbounds play to half court from Leaky to RJ. And then obviously another timeout there used to get the game tying shot to Pete Nance. The reason I want to bring this up, Pack, is not necessarily the job Hubert Davis did, but the type of leader that he is. Some head coaches are very like firm grip. It's got to be me. I'm the guy. What does it say to you about his leadership style and his ability to trust his coaching staff that he let not only Jeff Lebo be the one to draw up the final play of regulation, but that he allowed him to go with this untested, unproven play for the game tying shot?
Yeah. I mean, well, first of all, Jeff Lebo has over 300 wins as a head coach.
Yes, himself.
And it was a brilliant move, in my opinion, for Coach Davis to bring him on the staff in general, because Coach Davis didn't quite have that experience. So it's awesome, all around. It's awesome opportunity for Lebo to come back home, and it's awesome for Hubert to have someone with so much experience on staff. And that alone develops that trust, right? And they obviously, those guys played together, so there's some trust there from being teammates and now coaching together, and the experience Lebo has. And I know that wasn't something that Lebo had ran in the past. He had said he had got it from another team that he had watched play.
Penn State,
Penn State. And so, but just the fact that he has that experience and he's able to say, wow, I like that, and he's able to store that away and then draw it up in the heat of the moment with 2 seconds left. I mean, that's pretty impressive. So just the fact that they have that chemistry amongst the staff is awesome.
Yeah.
And, it's not just Coach Lebo. Coach Frederick does a lot of the game planning. And you can tell on the sideline, you watch him, he's standing up. Every time the other team's running like a baseline out of bounds play or something, you can see Coach Frederick's up. He's telling the guys what's about to happen or what they're about to see. And then Coach Sullivan has a huge say in the defensive game plan. So the staff, I mean, they all do their part to pitch in, and Coach Davis does a great job of trusting them and allowing them to do their job, which is why they're such an effective coaching staff, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think it says so much. Like, if I'm a player on a team with a coaching staff that trusts each other, I feel like that frees me to trust them all the more and to trust my teammates all the more. And to that point, Pac, I want to get your reaction about this. I was listening to a podcast actually earlier today that Jay Wright was on, the former Villanova coach. And they were specifically talking about Carolina trying to work their way out of that 4-game losing streak, work their way out of that rut. And I wrote down his exact quote because I wanted to talk about it tonight. He said, this is something they have to go through together, meaning the Tar Heels working their way out of their 4-game losing streak. Coaches can't blame players. The players can't blame the coaches. We both have to take responsibility here. We both have to fix it together. And I really resonated with what he said in that. And I think what you've just said about the coaching staff's willingness to trust each other works its way down to the players and their willingness to trust each other, which you see revealed like in the higher assist percentage right now, which you see revealed in Caleb Love being the leading assister in each of the last 3 games, this 3-game winning streak. Coincidence? I think not. So from the teams that you've been privileged to be a part of, whether as player or coach, how do you go about working out of ruts through trusting one another, whether it be player to player or player to staff or anything like that?
Sure. Well, I mean, we all know, whether it's sports or life or whatever, you don't really grow until you go through something, and this is an opportunity for growth. And I think leadership, good quality leadership, points to that. All of Carolina's goals, like we've talked about before, are still right in front of them. They're right in front of them. The NCAA.
They can't go undefeated, man. What are we going to do? Come on.
Right. Hey, there's a reason that hasn't happened in a really long time, And so, and here's the deal, all their goals are in front of them. Yeah. And great leadership is not going to allow finger pointing or blaming or, any of that stuff, whether that's the coaches or the players. And we have great leadership on both sides of the fence there. But great leadership is going to say, they're going to come together and they're going to look at this thing and figure out, what do we have to do where we want to go? It's not our coaches got to do this or our players got to do this. It's what do we have to do collectively to get where we want to go. I know that's what those guys are doing. We've seen that improvement the last 3 games, and it's the mark of good teams. It's the mark of veteran leadership. It's we. It's not individuals, or it's not coaches versus players. It's we. So this team, they have that, and honestly, that doesn't really concern me at all. That the chemistry or the argumentativeness or the frustration, whatever, that doesn't concern me with this team because of how tight-knit they are and the coaching staff that we have.
Okay, so I think that's something to very much keep an eye on, is how does that off-court unity and trust bleed over into game action, and how the players and staff trust one another. Let's continue to watch that develop this season. Well, Pack, from one Big Ten football powerhouse to the other, we'll preview UNC Michigan inaugural Jumpman Invitational in just a moment. But first, this episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends from every professional and amateur league out there. From professional football to the college bowl season, basketball, and man, that wild World Cup that wrapped up on Sunday. They've got it all at BetOnline. Make sure you check out the line for tonight's game between Carolina and Michigan. They're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about all the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Okay, Pack, coming up tonight, we've got 7 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN, Charlotte, North Carolina, the second night of the inaugural Jumpman Invitational. On Tuesday night, the Carolina women played the Michigan women. Not so good there. We'll talk about that later. And then later on, Florida men and Oklahoma men played, and then they flip-flop for tonight, Carolina men, Michigan men. And then the nightcap is the Florida women versus the Oklahoma women, all teams that are sponsored by Jumpman. Now, Pack, as for the Wolverines, they're not off to a great start, but it's certainly not a bad start. They're 7-3. Their losses were all to ranked teams: Arizona State, Virginia, Kentucky. All of them are top 40 at KenPom right now. And Virginia and Kentucky are both top 11. And so no bad losses by any stretch of the imagination. The issue comes with they don't really have any good wins either. They've lost to every good team they've played this year. Their best win is Pittsburgh, who is 72nd at KenPom. Every other of their 6 wins are teams outside the top 144 currently at KenPom. So the question, Pack, is what do we make of Juwan Howard's team? Well, obviously Hunter Dickinson is back. He's the leading scorer, just over 19 points a game. Juwan's son Jet is a stud freshman, kind of underlooked coming into college, but is off to a great start. Another freshman, Doug McDaniel, has started each of the last 2 games in the backcourt. His first game as a starter had 15 points, 7 assists. Good stuff there. Now, what's interesting is there's an article on ESPN right now as we speak, and the title of that is this: even before the Jumpman Invitational, is Michigan's season over? Woof. That's not what you want to be reading about your squad. Now, a lot of that is because some of their more dialed in numbers, as you get more into the weeds on it, are not great. They have a good offense like the Tar Heels. We talked, Pack, just a minute ago about Carolina's defense needing to improve. Michigan's is like doubly worse than North Carolina's is. They struggle to rebound, and they're not great with turnovers either. So as you look ahead to this game on paper, some similar issues, some similar, like not necessarily great wins other than now Carolina's Ohio State win. But it seems like Carolina has a leg up in this game. The question I want to ask you, Pack, after all that setup is this: how do the Tar Heels build on what they did against Ohio State and on what they've done the last 3 games coming into this game against Michigan?
Yeah, to me, it's focusing on what we do and things we can improve on. There were times against Ohio State where I was like, wow, that's Carolina basketball. And then there were times where I was like, wow, that's junior high basketball. And I want to see us be more consistent. And I'm not saying it has to be perfect for 40 minutes by any means, but just cut down on the silly shots, cut down on the turnovers, be consistent on the defensive end. Like, just put 40 consistent minutes together. If we do that, I think we have a leg up in almost every single game we play.
Yeah.
Yeah. But especially in this game with Michigan, I like the way we match up with them. Their stud is Dickinson. Well, our stud is Bacot, and I'll take our stud over Dickinson all day long. And so
while
to me,
keeping in mind that they know each other well, they played together in AAU stuff. Yeah,
for sure. And so I just like the way that I think Bacot, wins that matchup. Whereas most times when you play Michigan, you can go, he matches up with Dickinson. That is in Michigan's favor. Well, in this time, this matchup, it's not, in my opinion. And then obviously we have Leaky that we can put on, whoever we need to on the perimeter, possibly even Jawan's son, like you mentioned. And our guard play, is more veteran and better, in my opinion. So, like you said, I do think that we have a leg up in this matchup, and I just hope we come out and exploit that, and we do what we're supposed to do.
Yeah, I think
there's just been so many times where I feel like we're going to come out and take care of business, and we don't. We lay an egg, and so I hope that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the matchup I'm excited to see. Last year, the Dickinson-Bacot matchup didn't really materialize all that much. Dickinson was in foul trouble, only played 18 minutes. Bacot had a solid game, but it was Caleb Love who led the way in the Tar Heels' absolute blowout of the Wolverines last year in Chapel Hill in the ACC Big Ten Challenge, 72-51. And so I'm with you. I think that's the biggest takeaway. Is it's less about what's Michigan doing, and it's more about Carolina just needs to play Carolina basketball to keep progressing on what they've already done and be wise, play what you said, Carolina basketball, not junior high basketball, if we're just separating those two things. And I think you come out keeping in mind this game is in Charlotte. So that you kind of, even though it's a neutral site for all four of these teams, the Tar Heels definitely have a big home court advantage. They're playing in the home of the Charlotte Hornets. Packett, what's your gut tell you? I know you had just said like you expect Carolina to come out and take care of business in this game, but we've done that and been burned by it this year. What are you expecting from the Tar Heels? A close win, a big win, loss, close loss, blowout loss? What do you imagine in reality this will play out?
You're tempting me to pull a jinx right here and maybe predict a close win, but hopefully get a big one or something. But in all actuality, what I think will happen is I think that this will be a ball game for about a half. But I think Carolina will wear them down over the course of 40 minutes. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and predict an 82-70 UNC win.
Okay, 12-point advantage. The spread is Tar Heels by 5. Who's Carolina's leading scorer in this one?
Bacot. I'm gonna go with Bacot. I know he's matched up with Dickinson. I know that there's a risk of foul trouble, but I just think they struggle a lot with rebounding, and I think Bacot can feast on that weakness and get to the free throw line a lot and get a lot of second chance points. So I'll go with Bacot.
I love to hear it. Well, part of the reason the men need to get a big win in this inaugural Jumpman Invitational against Michigan is because they got to make up for what happened on Tuesday night with the ladies who unfortunately fell to the women Wolverines. So this game, 76-68, honestly, it could have been a lot worse, Pac. They were down by, I think it was like 21 at one point in the first half of the game. Where I want to start with this one is it feels like there's been several games this season where the Carolina women have gotten off to a slow start, and that was the case again in this one. Keep in mind, folks, if you don't watch as many of the women's games, they play quarters rather than halves. So in the first quarter, Michigan outscored Carolina 35-20, 35 points in the first quarter. That's just insane to me. But over the course of the final three quarters, Carolina led 48-41. But the thing is, you can't get blown out by 15 in the first quarter of the game. They've had some great comebacks this season, and they obviously did that, getting back to where they only lost by 8. But if you don't dig that hole, then you're in good shape. What do these ladies need to do to have better starts?
I don't know if this is right, wrong, or indifferent, but anytime I've had a team that struggled with, man, we're slow to start the game, or we're slow out of halftime, or whatever it is, I've gone back and I've said, okay, what are we doing in practice? Do we start practice slow, and that translates to the way we play our games? And so to me, I can't speak to that because I'm obviously not in their practice, but maybe that's something they assess, and I'm sure the coaching staff is talking about that. But how can we practice every day getting fast starts so that translates to the way that we play? To me, that. And then obviously there's a mentality that goes along with it, and just being mentally prepared to go from the tip and not wait until, oh, shoot, now we're down 10. Okay, now we got to do what we talked about doing in practice and go, make up for it, and you can't do that at such a high level of basketball. So I guess, those things are things they've got to figure out. Luckily for them, they've still got half a season left. So
that's
plenty
right.
of time to get those things corrected.
Absolutely. The phrase I've been using a lot about a lot of teams this season is better days are ahead, certainly for the Tar Heels. One of the issues is that Deja Kelly had just an off shooting night from the field. She was great from the free throw line, 11 for 13. I love her getting to the line that much, but just 2 for 13 from the floor. Now, most nights for the Tar Heels, they're going to be able to make up for that because they are such a balanced scoring team, with 4 of the starters averaging in the 13 to 15 points a game range. But unfortunately, in this game versus, Michigan, she just didn't have much help from the other ladies either. In fact, only one of the 5 starters shot over 50% in this game, and that was Anya Poole, who only took 3 shots and made 2 of them. Eva Hodgson was 5 for 12, Alyssa Usby was 5 for 16, and Kennedy Todd Williams 4 of 11. And in fact, when you bring in the reserves, same kind of thing. Only Destiny Adams shot over 50% at 5 for 9. In fact, she was the only reserve that made a shot. Paulina Paris was 0 for 5, and Tiani Key was 0 for 2. That's just, it's one of those nights, right? Like that happens in basketball where the ball doesn't always go through the net. But unfortunately, it was a night where for basically the entire team, the ball wasn't going through the net at a high enough clip. One of the things, Pac, though, that I was encouraged by is that Paulina Paris, even though she didn't make a shot, the lone freshman on this team still played, I believe it was 16 minutes in this game. And so it's nice to see that Coach Banghart's starting to trust her even more in some of these big moments against a ranked team. Here's the thing that I want to ask you about next is, this was Carolina's 4th ranked opponent this season. One of the things I had said yesterday was that really wanted to see Carolina win this game, be 3-1 against those ranked teams so as to solidify their top 10 status heading into non-conference play. It doesn't work out there that way, although they still finished with 2 wins against ranked opponents, one of whom is against the 5th ranked Iowa State Cyclones at that time. And so you got to feel at least I say pretty good, really good about where you're at heading in to non-conference play. How do you readjust now that you've had a loss to end on conference play? You got 9 days off before you host Florida State to start ACC portion of your schedule. What is your message to your team if you're Courtney Banghart?
Well, I think you got to step back and look and say, okay, this is what we've done so far. This is where we need to improve. And, it's just like you mentioned, 2-2, we've gotten 2 big wins. We've lost 2 to ranked opponents. That's okay. We've been battle tested. We've seen what we can do against the best of the best. And now we need to look at where we need to improve so that we can win those games, especially down the stretch. And so I'm sure the coaching staff and the players are going to take a step back and they're going to say, hey, we got to have faster starts. Hey, we got to do this, better defensively so that when the ball's not going through the net, we can still get enough stops that we can win, or, whatever it is that they've got to figure out, they can figure those things out. They can assess those, and then they've got 9 days. So I'm sure some of that's going to be time off, recovery, Christmas, spend time with your family.
100%.
Some of it's going to be, let's get better at this. Let's fix this. Let's correct this. And then same thing as the men's team. All of our goals are still in front of us.
That's right.
Let's go win the ACC. Let's go get us a 1 or a 2 seed in the tournament, set ourselves up for success, and then have a good NCAA tournament. So everything is still ahead of them. And I'm sure that they're going to look at that and improve what they need to and find themselves in a good spot down the stretch.
I completely agree with that, Pack. Like this is a veteran, confident team. Yes, they will be disappointed in the loss, but they will be proud of how they fought back. They're going to get that rest. They're going to figure some things out. And now you've got a very consistent schedule ahead. I don't think you and I have talked about it, but I've mentioned it on the show. The women's ACC schedule is 18 games, and it's literally 9 straight weeks of Thursday, Sunday, Thursday, Sunday. And so you're able to get into a rhythm. The ACC has some great high-quality opponents they get to play and put stuff together with. And so I'm with you. I'm still all in on these ladies. They've got 2 losses now, but both 2 ranked teams, as we've already said. And yeah, sure, they might fall out of the top 10 after this, but they can work their way right back into that. Really still excited about everything in front of this team. Well, folks, that's it for today's episode. Can't wait for tomorrow. We're going to be able to recap the men's game against Michigan. And then coming up on Friday, great interview with Carolina linebacker Cedric Gray. Can't wait for you to hear that as you get ready for Christmas weekend. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Heels. Follow Pack at Coach_K23, and you can follow me at Isaac Schade. Would love for you to interact with us more through email. You can send a message to the show, lockedontarheels@gmail.com. For your next listen, check out Locked On Sports Today. Biggest stories of the day plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and of course, the take of the day. Locked On Sports Today, available on Odyssey, YouTube, and anywhere else you get podcasts. Folks, don't forget to subscribe, smash the like button, and leave some comments on your thoughts on today's episode. We both, Pack and I, really appreciate you hanging out with us on a Wednesday. Maybe you're listening to us as you do some Christmas shopping. Got to go finish that off myself, Pack. I hope it's a Merry Christmas for you and the whole Kilby family. Can't wait to be back with you next week, buddy.
Yes, Merry Christmas to you all. Merry Christmas to the listeners. We'll see you soon.
Yes, absolutely. Because you know what? It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. Hey, until tomorrow, peace.